Scientists stumbled upon a cave that, by every rule of biology, simply shouldn't exist. For over 5 million years, it's been completely sealed off from the surface, cut off from sunlight, filled with toxic air, and left to evolve entirely on its own. While the rest of the world was building civilizations and, at some point, inventing the selfie stick, the life inside this place was following a completely different path. They survived without us, and over time, evolved as if we were never here at all. This is Movile Cave, an underground world that treats the sun like a distant, irrelevant rumor, where life follows a completely different set of rules. Welcome to the Wax and Vein Ledger, an archive of hidden places and the worlds that exist just out of sight. By every standard metric of a healthy environment, Movile Cave is an absolute disaster. There is zero sunlight, which means the foundational pillar of life on Earth, photosynthesis, is off the table. The air is a thick, choking cocktail of low oxygen and high concentrations of carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide. If you tried to spend any time here without a specialized suit, your lungs would effectively give up on the concept of breathing in a matter of minutes. For most of its history, this was a completely sealed ecosystem, a bubble of geological stubbornness that hadn't exchanged a single breath with the outside world for over 5 million years. Most scientists look at an environment like this and see a sterile void, a place where life goes to die. But as it turns out, life is much more creative than we give it credit for. Take away the usual conditions, and life starts to follow a different set of rules. The most incredible part of this story is that we found it entirely by accident. In 1986, workers were scouting a site near the Black Sea for a power plant, and they happened to drill a shaft into what they thought was just another limestone void. When the scientists finally dropped down to see what was inside, they weren't expecting a welcoming committee. They expected an empty, damp hole in the ground. Instead, they found a fully functioning ecosystem, and creatures that seemed perfectly fine, never seeing the surface again. It wasn't empty. It was active. Things were already moving, feeding, and surviving in the dark. It was a sobering reminder that humans can be standing right on top of an entire world and remain completely oblivious to it for millions of years. What they found inside was a radical departure from the world above. Since there's no sun to power plant life, the entire food chain is built on a process called chemosynthesis. Down here, bacteria feed on the chemicals in the water, specifically the sulfur and methane, turning the cave's toxic breath into energy. It is a biological economy based on poison. Feeding on these bacteria are nearly 50 different species of invertebrates, many of which are found nowhere else on the planet. We're talking about translucent spiders, blind scorpions, and centipedes that have traded their eyes and pigment for a predatory instinct that works perfectly in the pitch black. Everything here has evolved to navigate a world where sight is a meaningless concept. It's a hauntingly beautiful version of Earth that has been operating in the basement for millions of years, and it doesn't need our permission to keep going. But before you start planning a weekend trip to see the blind scorpions, you should know that this environment is aggressively hostile to human visitors. The air quality alone is enough to keep stays limited to a few hours at most, even with the right gear. The hydrogen sulfide smells like rotting eggs, and the CO2 levels are high enough to cause dizziness and confusion almost instantly. The creatures here evolved to thrive in this exact chemical soup, but for us, it's a constant reminder that we are the outsiders. We are the fragile ones who need a very specific temperature and a very specific oxygen mix just to function at all. Movile Cave is a place where we are the ones who don't belong, which raises the unsettling question of just how many other impossible worlds are sitting right under our feet. The isolation here is so absolute that it creates a kind of biological time dilation. Because Movile Cave was sealed off by thick layers of clay and limestone 5.5 million years ago, its inhabitants have been on a solo flight through time. They didn't experience the ice ages. They didn't care about the extinction of the mammoths. They just kept existing in the dark, refining their weird, sulfur-based existence. This is a world that evolved on its own, a parallel reality that managed to stay hidden until a random drill bit broke the seal. It suggests that our version of life, the one with the green leaves and the blue sky, is just one possible outcome. If life can build a thriving, complex city in a toxic cave without a single ray of sunlight, then our definitions of habitable are probably far too narrow. It suggests that places we've already written off, deep underground, beneath ice, or locked away in extreme environments, might be far more alive than we realize. And if that's true here on Earth, it becomes a little harder to rule it out anywhere else. We've spent so much time looking at the stars for alien life that we almost missed the fact that it was already here, thriving in a Romanian cave system. The story of Movile Cave is a humbling one because it proves that the Earth still has the capacity to surprise us. It's a world that has been evolving in the dark for millions of years, and we've only just begun to scratch the surface of what it has to teach us. It remains dangerous, mostly unexplored, and still profoundly alien. It's a silent, subterranean whisper that reminds us that we don't know nearly as much as we think we do. If you've enjoyed this descent into the dark, you might want to stick around for the next reveal. You can join the conversation by hitting the subscribe button below. It's a lot more welcoming than a sulfur-filled chasm. I'm curious though, if you had the chance to safely spend an hour in a place like Movile, would you take it? Or is the idea of a blind spider city a bit too much for your Tuesday morning? Let me know in the comments. Let's talk about what else might be hiding in the dark while we're still in the light. Until next time, stay curious, stay observant, and maybe watch where you're drilling. You never know what you might wake up.